There's a rhythm to healing, a vibration that calls us back to ourselves, to our essence, to our truth. But in a world filled with noise, how do we listen? How do we tune into the whispers of our soul? Today we step into that sacred space with Luke Kalani, sound healer, plant medicine guide, and space holder for those seeking spiritual transformation. Through vibration, intention, and the wisdom of the earth, he helps others break through the noise and reconnect with their truth. Through the resonance of sound and the wisdom of plant medicine, he helps others realign and reclaim the parts of themselves that may have been lost. So take a breath, feel the stillness, and enjoy this conversation with Luke. Luke, welcome aboard, mate. I'm so excited for our chat today.
Yes, me too. Thanks for having me.
Mate, spiritual healer, spiritual guide. I don't know what terminology you would apply or what label you would apply to yourself. Is there a label?
Human being.
Human being? I love it.
Yeah.
I've been to a couple of your ceremonies, and today we're going to talk about all things spirituality. We're going to talk about all things healing, and everything in between. But for those who don't know, let's get to know Luke. So you've got an interesting background. So originally from the UK, but one of your parents, I believe, is from Hawaii?
Hawaii,
yeah.
So my father's side, yeah.
So at what age did you come to Australia?
So I was 22 when I moved here. I'd been coming on holidays for every single year up until that point. My mum's sister and my mum's brother both emigrated out here from the UK. And so we were lucky enough to come out here on holidays. And the first time I arrived here, I was like, yeah, this is it.
This is it?
Yeah. We have to be here.
Yeah. Always in Perth?
It was always in Perth, yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So they were all in the Fremantle area. And I remember specifically one evening we were at the yacht club in Freo. And I was walking out and it was in the middle of the night, just on the little passageways where all the boats are moored up. And I lay down and I looked up and I just remember praying. I was just like, I have to be here. Like, this is it for me. There was no indication that we ever would live out here. But after a few years of me mithering and saying how much I wanted to be here, my mum finally agreed to do it.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And we went through the application process. We were very lucky that we were able to both get accepted.
Lay it out for us. How did you arrive at this point? What led you down the path of being a space holder / healer?
Sure.
Yeah. What was the journey for you?
The journey was one of chaos, and it was a life of escapism, ultimately. Not knowing my father, he left when I was 3. So that side of the family I'd never had any interaction with, never knew them. And I remember from still being at school, this drive towards anything that would help me to numb emotion. I felt like I was too sensitive. I felt like everything affected me. So just through the process of living and seeing if I do this, it feels less intense in my body. My first addiction was food. And then as soon as I was of age, way before I was of age, at around 14 years old, I discovered alcohol and smoking weed. And I just went down that whole process of numbing my body, numbing my emotions. And that lasted through a life of partying, drugs. And I reached the age of 27 and I was working full-time in hospitality at that point. Hospitality was the perfect job because I got to drink while I was at work and I get to go out and party afterwards and before. And I thought, yeah, this is it for me. I'll be in hospitality forever. And then I met somebody that saw something in me that she was able to help draw out of me. She was the first person that I'd met that was spiritual, or the first person that I took notice of that was quite spiritual. And she had started working at the same place that I was working at. And we began dating. And over time, she was able to help me dissolve some of the walls that I was carrying. She introduced me to plant medicine.
Right.
She introduced me to lots of other teachers, spiritual teachers. And I went on a process from that moment of myself, self-discovery. And at the age of 28, I had a very big wake-up call, or I would say almost like a death process and rebirth. And from then, it's just, and till present day, it's been a process of healing, integration, transformation, and I'm still on it.
That initial process, was it a colleague?
It was a colleague at work, and then we ended up being together, partnership.
Right.
Yeah.
Were you reluctant to take that journey?
100%.
You were.
Absolutely. So resistant.
Yeah.
The first year was an entire resistance towards it. And it got to the point where I couldn't resist anymore, because as soon as the seed or my awareness had been brought to the attention of these modalities, the world began to yield to that and start presenting all these people and situations. And I was like, what is happening? Like, I've only just heard about this thing and now everybody's talking about it. And I had always said, I've been brought up, you do not take psychedelic drugs. My mom drilled it into me. One of her best friends was taking LSD and she had like psychosis on it. And so I was scared to even touch anything in that realm, regardless of how it was taken, whether it was recreational or ceremonial. It was just not ever going to happen.
Yeah.
Until it did. And until it got to the point where I was able to find the courage, because I think it was the idea of having to let go of control and having to surrender to something that I didn't know if I could trust. And my first experience with a plant medicine was about showing me that it was safe and offering me an opportunity to build trust with the spirit and the intelligence of the plants and those in the unseen worlds beyond this reality. And that was a very deep and intense process for me.
It's funny you mentioned LSD, because just before I met you this morning, I was reading an article in the newspaper about LSD, and Western medicine's come on board with LSD in terms of treating PTSD, depression and anxiety and that kind of stuff. The jury's still out on ADHD, but LSD is it's at the forefront at the moment of these treatments.
Yeah,
so it's very interesting.
Yes, there is definitely a revival of these types of medicines being used in a clinical setting.
Yeah,
for PTSD and lots of other things. ADHD is a big, huge topic at the moment. It seems to be a very, very prominent condition in society.
It is, and people that previously would have been perhaps misdiagnosed are now being told in their adulthood, this is what you have.
Yeah.
And for those people, things are actually making sense. Like, okay, this is why my life was in such turmoil in those years, because now I can
relate, because I tick the box on every single one of the so I present as somebody with ADHD.
Right.
The thing I am trying to reconcile is my own personal belief is that ADHD is a symptom of something a lot deeper, and it presents as a byproduct of trauma. I would say that trauma is actually the root of the symptoms of ADHD for myself. Okay. I can only speak for myself, and when I'm looking into the nuances between each individual that have traits of ADHD, I'm starting to see them as, symptoms to something a little bit deeper. The inattentive, the dopamine seeking, there's a lot that stems, in my case, from trauma, from childhood, and closely related with attachment theory. And people that are struggling with different attachment theories are presenting these symptoms of ADHD.
Right.
And I think more so these days because of the environment, because we've got the phones, we've got the coffees, we've got everything that's kind of exacerbating them as well.
Yes.
So it's becoming very, very much noticed around us in different people. Because as soon as I stop drinking coffees and as soon as I stop doing the things and seeking social media, dopamine fixes and all the dopamine fixes, my ADHD symptoms can subside a little bit. So I'm just experimenting with all of these different kind of ways to treat that. The main one being therapy, which has been incredible for my own journey.
Yeah.
And a necessity for my own journey.
You know what? I think the same can be said for PTSD. Like, it's the great thing that it's so talked about now. Like, everyone's the awareness around it. You know, it's phenomenal how people are so comfortable about talking about it now and recognizing that, okay, what I've had in the past or the past few years isn't just me being a broken person. These are the reasons why. So it gives them something gives them a starting point to work with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you went through that healing journey, and how did you transition from somebody who's going through a healing journey, which it's still ongoing, certainly for me, absolutely. Yeah. I think for everyone.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's never ending. So how then did you become, was it a conscious decision to say, I would like to do this for others?
Sure.
I'd like to hold space for others.
Definitely not.
No.
It was just through my own experiences with the plants that really was the instigation of my own healing, because until that point, the very first time that I had communed with medicine like this, I was living in a bubble that I thought was reality. And in that instance, I had that bubble completely burst, and all of a sudden the universe opened up in front of me. And before then, I was a vocal atheist. I didn't believe in God. My motto was, I only believe in myself, because I had no evidence of anything spiritual in my life. And in that very first sitting, I came out of that completely transformed, that view that there is God, and I just experienced it. Not only did I experience God, but I experienced myself as God, and I experienced everybody else as God. And that what I thought was reality is a fragment in time of what is actually available to us. And that, for somebody's psyche, is huge. It's massive. It is a complete reframe of existence and takes a long time to integrate. I decided consciously to sit intimately with plant medicine every single week for 10 weeks, where I would do exactly the same process and go and learn about myself until I felt that it was time to stop. And on the very last sitting, I got the message that this is it. Now it's time for you to integrate and go and take with the information that you've just learned, everything that you've just been shown and guided, go and integrate that into your life. And at that point, it's not like I just stopped drinking alcohol, stopped smoking, stopped wanting to party. The part of me that was engrounded in those patterns, in that way of life, was still very much alive in me, but the consciousness had another choice. It knew there was another way. And in that reference point of something greater, that allowed me to have a clear path of to where I was, to where I was going, and allow that journey to begin, of me getting to a place where those things that I was doing to distort my own reality were no longer needed, because I had an anchoring in something far greater than what I was used to. I had the love, the unconditional love, guidance and support of a being, of source itself, of existence itself. And that's what I had been missing my entire life. I feel that the drive towards plant medicine was in search of unconditional love, unconditional acceptance, unconditional understanding. And everything that I put in place in my life, the alcohol, the drugs, was to cover up the hole of not feeling that and not knowing what that was, but knowing that I needed it. And it was only in a connection with Great Spirit, a connection with God, with the universe, that hole began to heal and fill. And from then, I didn't need to turn to anything that distorted life, because I could see that life was beautiful and it was divinely connected, and that I was a part of this fabric, of this weaving of reality, that we are all notes in a symphony that source is playing orchestrally. We're all instruments that are producing music. And music has been throughout my entire life. That's been the way that I make sense of spirituality. It's the way that I make sense of the universe, of reality itself, through harmonics, vibrations, notes, and it helps me to reconcile reality.
Now, sound healing is an integral part of what you do.
Yes.
What role does it play in healing? I know we are all vibrating beings, so is that what it is, the vibration of the sound?
Sure.
That kind of recalibrates, or I don't know if recalibrates is the right terminology there, but it interacts with our vibration to get some kind of balance or resonance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
beautifully said, yeah. It helps us to find that entrainment within our own vibration. Our centers, our chakras, or our meridians and our points of energy sources all have a frequency. And we are able to, through sound healing that is precisely tuned with precision, when we play a frequency, the dominant frequency and the center's frequency itself start to begin to come into alignment. So if we're out of alignment at all in our own frequency, if you have a note on a guitar, let's say it's the bottom E, and it's out of tune, you can notice it when you're playing a chord. It's like, that's out of tune. We need to tune that one back up so that it's in tune again. Our centers can fall out of tune as well. And so essentially sound healing is the tuning process. It helps to play that frequency, and because it's the dominant frequency and that's the blueprint and the essence of that center, everything begins to align to the dominant frequency. So in terms of sound itself and frequency, it can help to entrain the brain waves. It can help to establish order back within our own electrical system. But I'm not really that interested in that, because sound takes care of that. I mean, sound healing works because sound works. Sound healing works. I'm interested in guiding people into a space where we are able to commune with the unseen world, with the frequencies that are beyond our capability to perceive. And the reason I use sound within that, which was a beautiful vision that I was offered through psilocybin taught me everything I know about sound healing. It showed me how these frequencies of spirit will use sound in this physical reality as a vehicle to be able to interact with the physical world. Because spirit can't physically interact with the physical, but because the sound frequency is between the worlds, it acts within the physical and within the spirit. There's now a bridge that frequency can use to be able to move into the body and to heal. And so certain spirits will use the frequency of sound to be able to work on the human body, emotionally, physically, spiritually. And what we offer in ceremony is an opening of sacred space. It has to be held with integrity, because we only want to allow healing frequencies to be able to move through the space. And so, depending on what the bowls are tuned to, they need to be precisely tuned to different hertz frequencies, because these are the undercurrent and the essence of spirit itself to be able to use it and come through. When we're opening sacred space, we're allowing that to happen. We're allowing the bridge between the worlds to open up so that influence from the unseen can be felt and perceived in the physical realm here. That's essentially what I do in ceremony. And the difference between sound healing is that sound is the one that is going in and doing the healing, and we're still having that effect. But as soon as you open sacred space and you're working with the healing spirits, it adds the extra element of the communing with the other side.
That's very interesting. When I went through uni, I would always play classical music. I had no idea. I'm not a classical music person. I don't like it. I don't like opera or anything like that. But it just worked. It just helped me focus. That's the only thing I could do. And then I learned later on that it's, that most of it, or if not all of it, is around that 528 hertz kind of frequency, and that which is very much around concentration and focus.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Solfeggio, yeah.
But let's talk about the role of the plant medicine in all this. So,
Sure.
what do they do essentially? Like, I don't know, Blue Lotus, does that alter your brain waves into a deeper state of meditation, or is that how it works? Or is it around decalcifying your pineal gland, or what role does it play in your containers?
So with Blue Lotus, it does do that. It helps you to really drop into a deeper state of meditation, of connectedness. So Blue Lotus is a psychotropic plant.
Right.
It isn't a psychedelic plant where you're not going to start having full-on visions, but it does alter your consciousness in a way that it helps you to allow the mind to still. Every plant has a spirit. It has an intelligence. And the role of the plant within the physical tends to take on a spiritual essence as well. If you look at Blue Lotus, it starts in the mud. It starts in complete darkness. And eventually it starts to begin to reach up to the surface towards the light. Against all odds, going through the murky waters and then blossoming on the surface. And it's a metaphor for helping us to come out of the darkness and back into the light. And that process of transmuting energy. Blue Lotus has an energy of precision. I see it as like the dentist drill. And when we're talking about things being taken on in our aura, in our centers, Blue Lotus has an ability to drill them out as if you were having something drilled out in your tooth or something like that. That's the way that I feel the energy of Blue Lotus works. It's very precise and it's very high vibration. Alternatively with cacao is a very flowing, open, very just all loving, very earth-based medicine. And so you can see the difference between the two, how one's very cosmic in nature, and one's very ethereal and celestial and high vibration, so it can remove anything that it needs to out of the body. Cacao helps to connect. It helps you to just connect back to the heart, and the heart is the earth. The earth is our heart. It helps us to plant our roots back into earth, and the physical body can remember where it came from, that it will always have nourishment here. That's what the earth is for. Blue Lotus connects us at the lotus, at the crown chakra, to the ethereal realms. Different plant medicines will have different intelligence or consciousness and teachings and medicine for us.
Now, you recently had a ceremony where you combined the two.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, that's powerful.
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't do that often.
Right.
I like to keep them separated. But oftentimes I do like to combine them, because it is just when we're using breath work to really get back into the body and we're moving through a lot of energy, having the heart opening medicine of cacao and that grounding into earth, but then also being open to the celestial realms. It just gives us that full 3-world alignment. The lower world, the middle world, and the upper world, represented in the body, the root chakra, the heart, and the crown. When all 3 of those centers are activated and we're moving through sound, it just is like a cacophony of it's just, we're just held beautifully in that container. Within the body. This is the container where we ultimately have to find safety.
But the other medicine you use, very powerful, which I haven't done yet, and you do this more on a one-on-one basis, is rapé. So tell us more about what that is and what the ceremony involves.
Sure.
And what it does.
Yeah. So traditionally, rapé is Nicotiana rustica. So it is the tobacco plant in the Amazon jungle. The particular rapé that I use is from a dear friend of mine over in Brazil. And he mixes it with other elements, mainly the ash. So it's ash from different plants and trees. And they all have a medicinal property. There's different blends for different tribes, and some tribes are very notorious to have certain types and strengths of rapé. So they can be very different depending on where you source your rapé from.
Yep.
I use it personally for clearing work, and to help bring people back into the body. There's a lot of dissociation, whether it be chronic or even in very subtle ways. Even just scrolling on the phone is almost a little bit of a dissociation. It's like we're moving out of the body and into the mind, or completely out of the body in itself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so we're seeing an epidemic of disembodiment and dissociation when people come with issues in life, challenges in life. I want to help them through just ticking all of the boxes. First of all, we need to be able to make the right choices. And if we're not in the body, we can't make the right choices, because the choices really come from the body, not the mind. And so what Harpe does, it helps to anchor us back into earth. It is probably the most grounding plant medicine that is non-psychedelic, it is absolutely incredible to feel that grounded that quickly, especially after not being grounded.
Yeah.
And we're not really aware that we're not, but for us to feel that being planted and rooted back into the earth, plugged back into the socket, is a gift in itself.
Absolutely. Now, my understanding is that the process itself can be quite confronting, because it involves part of the way you administer it is through the nostril.
Yes. Yeah.
And, there's some purging that comes along with that. Yeah.
So you don't necessarily purge with rapé usually. I think because of the work that I've been called to do in my life, which is a lot of clearing work on people, whether it be with medicine or just through interaction, it takes on that signature. So when I'm sitting with people, there is 9 out of 10 people feel the need to purge, feel the need to release. I've always had a gripe against energies that are with people that aren't supposed to be there. And instead of taking people through a more intense process, whether it be with psilocybin, ayahuasca, or iboga, Harpe helps you to really very quickly let go of those types of energies and any kind of emotional blockages that we're carrying. It does require the element of surrender, because, like you said, it's very intense and the whole body can close up, and that's the opposite of what we're wanting. But it also shows us that when something difficult happens, our resistance to it, our aversion to pain or suffering or something that's intense, and we get to relax through it. So it's very much guided in when that first initial hit is applied, for us to relax and to breathe through it and just to allow the medicine to move through the body. And then we're rewarded with that feeling of grounding. And anything that needs to come up, anything that is not supposed to be within the body or attached to the body, has to leave in that moment.
How do you do that? How do you get somebody to surrender to the medicine?
Creating a safe space.
Yeah.
Creating safety.
Yeah.
If there is no safety between the one holding space and the one sitting, then you're not going to facilitate surrender or letting go. It's important to have that space to build relationship, to really get into the container. Us sitting down when you first arrive to do a ceremony, we can be talking for an hour, but in that first hour, we're creating the space that is required for the medicine to be able to work. It's a de-armoring process. It's a process of I am seen and heard in my process, and I'm ready to let go because I feel safe enough to do so. If I went to see somebody and didn't feel safe in their presence, the last thing I'm going to do is allow myself to let go in that moment.
Sure.
And it's exactly the same when we're intimate with a partner. It's what is safety is required when we're being together, coming into union. For that union to take place, there has to be an element of surrender. There has to be an element of being held.
Yeah.
And ceremony is no different. It's just in a non-sexual, platonic way that safety has to be generated. And so when that is happening, they're able to surrender, and it's in their willingness to surrender that allows the medicine to do what it needs to do. I don't do anything other than create the space for that to be able to happen. That's my job. The process of purging, the mystical stuff, that's all the medicine's work. That's not my work.
Yeah.
I'm just creating the environment for that to be able to happen and to make sure that the space is contained and safe.
Yeah, that's beautiful. The last Blue Lotus ceremony I went to, the container I went to, they were so powerful. There were people on the floor lying there, they were crying and all sorts. So it was beautiful, actually.
Yeah.
Very beautiful. It's a strange sensation. You're kind of aware of it, but you're so focused on what's happening with you. You're kind of aware of, okay, he or she is, having a moment over there, but it's beautiful. So you mentioned ayahuasca before. So I'd heard about that medicine previously, but never paid any attention to it now I know why. So because of that element of surrender, so that is a psychedelic medicine.
Yeah.
So I'm actually going to Costa Rica in June.
Beautiful.
To do my first ceremony.
And Rhythmia?
Rhythmia, yeah. And that is, so I understand now why I was never drawn to it, why I was never called to it before, because I wasn't ready for that to surrender.
Yeah.
If you could just run us through what it is, what it does.
Ayahuasca is, so many things.
Yeah.
So many things. Essentially, even the way that it was discovered in the pharmacy of the world, in the Amazon, how they discovered that these two elements out of all of the elements within the jungle go together to create this brew that gives you this experience is mind-boggling. And the only way that I really can reconcile that in my mind is that those people, those tribes, those traditions were so connected to their surroundings that they can speak to the plants, tell them exactly what is what and what they do. So the capi vine of ayahuasca is where the DMT is extracted from. And depending on who you sit with, there are other elements like the leaves, the chacruna leaves are added to it, which is an MAO inhibitor, and that helps the body to uptake the compounds that gives you the experience. I sat with Shipibo, which are in my opinion, they are the grand masters of that medicine. The Shipibo and their songs are just what make the experiences that I had just inexplainable. Yeah, and for me, that's the medicine. Actually, the ayahuasca and the spirit of ayahuasca has so much wisdom and intelligence to share and to show. The songs are the carriers in the same way as I was describing before. They're what call in the spirits. They're what help commune and the process to happen. It's the calling in of the elements. It's the calling in of... There is so much that goes into a ceremony. It is not just a facilitator sitting down and holding space. They have to call in and anchor in with every tree that is around them, every animal, every aspect of what surrounds them is being brought into the space and used as medicine. There's so much that goes into holding space for ayahuasca that it's a lifetime of learning. It's a lifetime of learning. And why I will only sit with those whose lineages are being passed down. There's places like Rhythmia that bring in those facilitators that it's their life, it's their world. It's been passed down from generation to generation.
It's not a case of, as I understand it, you do it once, and then suddenly it opens up your third eye, and then that's it.
Yeah. I mean, it does.
Yeah.
You could 100% do it once. I wouldn't recommend it,
No.
but
but there's certain spiritual practices that
absolutely.
Yeah.
If you go to sit with ayahuasca will strip you of everything that is untrue. And it doesn't matter what that is and how that affects you.
Yeah.
Because we can have attachment to untrue things, but our entire psyche has been developed around it. And so when that dissolves, we have nothing to anchor to. And although a beautiful process, incredibly dangerous, because we're being asked to come back into a society that is rooted on a foundation of distortion and untruth. I'm going to speak with I terms, for me to have the experience that I would be needing with ayahuasca is to go and allow it to strip me bare. But then I need the time to put myself back together again. And I need the help of ayahuasca to help put me back together, to start to dig new foundations, to start to plant these new trees that will bear fruit of truth. And that takes a long time. That's not a go and be shown the truth and then come back into society, because then we haven't healed.
Yeah.
We've just been shown the truth, but we haven't embodied it. And this is the gripe that I have with plant medicine. Not against plant medicine, but the way that it is used. I've found that for people to have lasting healing, it needs to be done over a long period of time, away from the structures and the societal conditionings. So going into the jungle, which is nature itself, to rebuild and to have a full rebirth over the space of 3 to 6 months, possibly even a year, I would do that. But to have a couple of sittings in Perth and then go to work on the Monday and have just sat on Saturday and Sunday, it's like, it's just...
Yeah.
It just doesn't work for me.
Yeah, it's really conflicting there.
Yeah.
Like you said, you're having to deal with the distortion of the society we live in, which conflicts with the reality that you've been brought
Absolutely.
into. Yeah, it's very hard to reconcile the two.
Yeah. Which is why I'm such an advocate of microdosing, or the medicine that is so much more subtle in nature. Because for people that are in society, it has to work this way forwards. And if we go to ayahuasca, we're kind of like, we're there and we have to come backwards into this.
Yeah.
So we're trying to create the path forwards where it's able to step. We're not really doing something which is going to be like, oh my gosh, that was earth shattering. But we're having these little steps forwards so that the result is exactly the same.
And what about, so little micro steps to the grand event.
Yeah.
But what other practices or daily practices can people integrate into their lives to be or to elevate spiritually?
Yeah. Anything that creates a house worthy of the Great Spirit. So if we see ourselves as the temple, the body is the temple. For the spirit to really shine within that temple, we have to have a clean temple. And I'm speaking not from myself right now, because I fall into the trap of not looking after myself. Like, I am still a work in progress and always will be. And this is something I've had to reconcile. I hold space for people to do this. That doesn't mean that I'm a perfect human being. I still do things that are not in alignment with who I want to be and who I'm wanting to become. And this is the beautiful spiral of life, of my own lessons.
Yeah.
Treating the body as if it is that temple. Moving the body so that the water, the electricity can freely flow within it. I would say it's so basic and so easy to have those foundational practices. Move the body, eat well, sleep, and do it something that helps to still the mind, whether that's meditation, swimming, running, whatever it is that gets you in that kind of thoughtless state. Music.
Yes.
Doesn't have to be sitting down there just meditating, because that doesn't work for me. I can do it for a bit and then my mind's just like, I have to. Walking for me is a thing that gets me in a rhythm where I don't need to think about it, and then I can still my mind and just allow my body to have something to do whilst I'm able to receive and to get really clear and still in the mind. They're just these real foundational basics.
Yeah. You mentioned Mother Earth before, and walking in nature is what does it for me. It's just really speaks to me.
Yeah, me too.
So we have this treasure around us. We just need to be still enough to see it.
That's it.
Yeah.
If you want to heal, get in a committed relationship. That will bring everything out. Yeah. Because that's the mirror, that it's inescapable. Relationship is ceremony. And it is two people saying that we are walking into this ceremony together. I think that's why I struggled with it so much earlier on in my life. Because again, I didn't want to face that. I didn't want to face myself. And in a relationship, you face yourself. Yeah. It's the reconnection back to nature that we don't get inside buildings and boxes that are man-made. There's it's a zoom out. It's like we're stuck in here because we're in the boxes and everything, and even in the cities and all of that sort of thing. And then as soon as we go into the expansiveness of nature and we're able to take those surroundings in and just witness it, it's an instant reconnection to something that you forget constantly.
And it is instant. Yeah. You just really feel it.
Yeah. And then shoes off.
Yeah, absolutely. Shoes off. Yeah.
I'm a huge advocate. We are electrical beings with waterways inside us that depend on electricity. Yeah. And we wear rubber soles. I'm like, but as soon as I take them off and I go and walk on the beach, I get my feet in the salt water, instantly.
It's instant. It really is. You can feel it.
It just empties.
Doesn't it?
It's like a container full of buzzing, crazy chaos.
Yeah.
And then a hatch opens at the bottom and it just begins to pour out.
Yeah.
And after 10, 15 minutes of walking barefoot on the beach, I'm like, why do I not do this every single day?
You mentioned disconnectedness before, and we just talked about reconnection.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to somebody who's, let's say atheist or essentially a non-believer or skeptic?
Yeah.
But they're curious.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to those people? Would you say just bide your time, the right time will come, or you would say give it a go?
Let me put myself there. I feel like if they're a true atheist but they're curious, the language has to be very much based on the self, of what's within them, what they can discover as an energy source, and incrementally begin to build and offer more experiences that become less tangible or less rooted in science or physical reality. I think it's going to be very hard for somebody who doesn't believe in something greater than themselves to get there straight away. Yeah.
Well, you said science is coming on board with a lot of stuff.
It really is. There's it's inseparable.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's inseparable. So like you can even talk about the morphogenic field, you can talk about the field around the heart, you can start, even like people like Dr. Joe Dispenza is doing a really good job at bridging those two together and taking people on essentially transcendental meditation style retreats and getting them to a space where they can experience God firsthand through meditation. So having people leading them into something as if we're going to do this because it has a very physical effect on the body. It's going to help you calm your mind. It's going to help you not have anxiety. I'm like, yeah, I'll do that. And they start meditating. And all of a sudden through meditation, they're feeling more connected. And then they start having a draw towards something a little bit deeper. That's how I would generally see somebody being able to go down that path.
Yeah.
Or they just have an experience that they can't deny, where it's just an all of a sudden awakening.
Yeah.
If somebody is feeling curious about it, there is no way, there's nothing that could stop that. That is a momentum that, although it may be very small in the mind, has been set in place, that is an avalanche that is unfolding within them that will lead them directly to what it is that they are actually looking for.
Yeah. Do you know what? A couple of weeks ago, I did a podcast with a guy over in the UK, and he's a medium. He touched on something that really made sense to me. He said that spirit plants these seeds in our subconscious, kind of what leans toward guardian angels, if you want to, in layman's terms, you know. So you still have the freedom of choice of, you know, following that guidance.
Sure.
Or not.
Yeah.
You still have a freedom, but the seed's been planted.
Yeah.
So that knowing, that intuition that you're talking about, being curious, yeah. So I think that's something that really can't be ignored because it's there for a reason, you know.
And I think atheism itself is a seed that has grown into something due to a rejection of religion, mainly.
Yeah.
I didn't find it in religion. I don't believe what is being presented there. And that was what it was for me. And I think when you see beyond it, this has been a process for me to see beyond. I would class myself as a Christian mystic. I don't go to church, but I'm very much a follower of Christ and Christ's ways as an Essene master. And
we're the same.
Yeah, but I wouldn't pour myself into church. I pour myself into the body as the church. And my connection with Christ is so intimate and personal that I don't need anything outside of that. I read the Bible and I read other texts which really help to strengthen that connection for me. So I think giving an atheist another other options rather than it's very black and I'm looking at that painting because it's like it's very black or white kind of thinking. Yeah. It's like it's either science or spirit or religion. And it's not that. It's all of it. And finding our own identity in spirituality is so important because we have lived in such a dualistic world. The tree of good and evil, right? It's this dualistic black and white world that we're living in, and it's in finding our place within that and reconciling the two opposites. I would say that's been my journey massively.
And honestly, I think, and it has been for a while, but it's definitely gaining momentum. I think there's a definite shift in consciousness, like in people being more accepting of the fact that we're just a very tiny part in something so great. You know, we're very much part of it, but it's not as black and white as they were conditioned to be growing up.
Absolutely.
I think there's a wider acceptance of that shift in consciousness, but you know, it's still a work in progress. You know, just the fact that you and I can have this conversation is proof. That we can comfortably talk about this now.
And not be killed.
Yeah, and not
because in one day we may have.
Exactly. He's a witch, so deal with him, which is positive. You know, I think there's a real positive shift towards that, especially when it comes to healing because, I did all the traditional quote unquote stuff, you know, the talk therapy, which has its place. Don't get me wrong.
Totally.
100%. But it needs to go hand in hand with other stuff. It's not a linear thing. You can't just do that one.
No. 100%.
Yeah.
I think if you want to heal, get in a committed relationship. That will bring everything out.
Yeah.
Because that's the mirror that it's inescapable. And that's why I say committed relationship. Yeah. Because it's very easy to run when the mirror starts reflecting back the deepest shadows that you're not prepared to deal with. But in commitment, when it presents itself, there's nowhere for you to go but to reconcile that in the moment. Relationship is ceremony, and it is two people saying that we are walking into this ceremony together. And just like a facilitator wouldn't give somebody 5 grams of mushrooms, and when their shadow starts going out saying, I'm out, see you later, and leaving them within this container to fend for themselves, we are doing that for each other. We are saying, no matter what comes up, I'm here, I'm going to hold the space, and we're going to deal with this. And there will be no stone left unturned within that. I think it is the most intense, most wonderful, most painful experience you can have. And I think the whole concept around marriage, it's such an old school kind of way of thinking about, you get married, you share your resources, and that's like, marriage is like to offer something for the physical, for like physical safety. It's not that. It's sacred. It's, we're doing this. Like, we are here to evolve. And for us to evolve, we have to let go of everything that has been rooted in distortion so that truth can be revealed. And that's what commitment is for me. And I think that's why I struggled with it so much earlier on in my life. Because again, I didn't want to face that. Right. I didn't want to face myself. And in a relationship, you face yourself. And it is the fast track to healing, in my opinion.
Providing it's an authentic relationship.
Absolutely.
Not surface level, superficial.
No.
Yeah.
You both need to be committed to and also aware that that's what a relationship is.
Yeah.
Or what your relationship will be, is that this is now an offering to God, and that whatever transpires within the container of the relationship is going to be difficult at times.
Would you say before you're able to get to that level of commitment, the commitment to the relationship you have with yourself needs to be solidified first, or you kind of find yourself within the confines or within that authentic relationship?
I think I believed that I needed to be healed before I could go into a relationship, but then the relationship gives me the opportunity to be able to do that within its own confines.
Yeah.
And I think that the danger there was the thinking that I didn't need to be, and it almost gave me the excuses to not be in a relationship or to dart from one relationship to the other. Because also I'm just not healed enough to be able to be in a fully devoted relationship. And it takes a lot of work, but you don't, as long as you both know that this is what it is. No one's perfect. Like, everyone's got their shit, and it's gonna come up. So, I mean, I am a runner. As soon as something comes up, shut down, I feel the root of it comes from shame. It's like, I can't be the person that this person needs me to be right now. And so shame takes hold. But that will come out as just like, shut down. And it isn't safe, I need to leave. That's the instant kind of, this isn't safe, I need to leave. And so it's a protective mechanism that's been with me my entire life. And I love it. Thank God it's there. It's probably saved me a lot. But it also, it isn't required in this relationship anymore. For me to really become the person that I know I can be, it's going to require me to overcome these patterns that have been playing out throughout my entire life, because it all comes up within those confines. And it's an opportunity. It's just the most wonderful opportunity to be able to do the deep work. You can do all the ayahuasca ceremonies you want, but this is where it really matters. The wonderful thing about ayahuasca is it gives you the context as to what we're playing inside this world that we're a part of. But it's meaningless until we can get this right, because we can't go from here to there. We have to do the deep work of evolution, of transmutation, and that doesn't come with knowing that there's more to life. It comes with taking the small steps where we are literally going through a mutation process and becoming a different being, a different species. But what that requires is for us to dig up and process and integrate all of the things that are keeping us in this old reptilian brain kind of animal state.
Yeah. Knowledge isn't power, it's the application of knowledge is where the power lies. Yeah, you have to put into practice.
That's it.
Yeah.
And that as healing becomes holistic, you can do all the spiritual work going under the sun, because I've done it.
Yep.
But then when it really counts in a relationship, that is my canary down the mine. If I'm being triggered in a relationship, I don't care how much ayahuasca I've drank. I don't care how much plant medicine ceremonies I've done. Even holding space for other people's transformations is meaningless. Yeah. If I can't get that right, what's it all for?
Yeah.
And it's taken me on a path of talk therapy, which I never really did, which I'm honestly, I don't know how I've lived without it. It's really helping me at this moment in time, in this season. Talk therapy has been incredible. And just having that revealed to me of all the places that I've abandoned myself.
Yeah.
And loving those parts. Because all I've ever done throughout my entire life, which is pretty vulnerable to say, but I've just sought the love that I was wishing that I had as a kid in everything, in everyone else. And I will never have that. I have to show myself that. If I'm always looking for that, I will never, no person outside of myself will ever be able to give me that. Not even the people that my mum and my dad, who I wanted it from.
Yeah.
I have to generate that within. And until that happens and it stops, the search for that in the external world stops, then I'm on a level playing field.
Yeah.
And I can start really living.
And with that, I mean, you give so much of yourself.
Yeah.
To holding space for others. How does Luke step back and refill your own cup?
With difficulty.
Yeah.
And I haven't been. And which is my own detriment. It's really taking its toll on me. Last year really took its toll on me, the end of the year. And I just was like, I need to stop because this isn't healthy. I was burnt out and I have to really reflect why. Why can I show up for everybody else but then finding it difficult to do it for myself? And I set the intention for 2025 to really heal again, like jump back on my self-healing journey. Because for the last couple of years, it's been very much about holding space for others. And I'm having to find this balance between the two where if I'm not pouring into myself, everything suffers for that. Everything. I'm still on it. I'm still learning. Like I said, I'm always a work in progress. I'm still discovering what it even is that fills my cup. Because if I was seeking for the love in everyone externally, I've been looking for that to be satisfied, but that's not my cups. Like I can get validation, I can have people give me words of affirmation and do things for me, and I can feel, love, but that's not me doing it for myself. Right. That's me needing it still from an external source. And so I'm learning, how do I do that for myself? I not need other people to do that for me. So it's a journey.
It's a journey. One that I wish you all the best in, mate.
Yeah, thank
you.
Luke
Kalani, you're an incredible human being, man. I really appreciate your time today.
It's been my absolute pleasure.
And
I feel like we just scratched the surface.
We have. Well, there's always another one. There's always the next time. There's the next time. So
for sure.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of other stuff that I'd like to dig deeper into.
Yeah.
So we'll do that on the next one.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks for joining us. Please consider the subscribe button for more episodes on empowerment and reclaiming who we truly are. We look forward to your company on the next episode of the Reclaim Project podcast.